to go ahead and start this in just a moment here to honor your time and people who join us later or can watch the replay. But I'm really, really, really glad you're here. First of all, I can take off this screen share, I think. Um, and I just want to say welcome to you. My name is Leslie Moffitt. I'm a high school band director, and I am here today because I want to share what I have learned through the course of my own personal life and what I've learned through the course of what's going on with pandemic education and building music programs and how to do all this while staying healthy. Because we talk all the time about our students' social and emotional needs. What about ours? How do we do this hard and important work in sustainable ways? And that's what I want to talk about today, because I almost didn't know how to do it in a sustainable way. Um, and now I'd like to share what I've learned in this process here, including the whole what we've done during a pandemic. So glad to have you with me. If you have questions at any time, feel free to pop them in the chat. We can keep this informal. Uh, um, and the like, I just wanted to share what my goal is with this. And then I just want to jump in and do this. Fix my note there. Um, I want people who show up at this to understand how you can do this important work um, I- and how you can do it in a sustainable way. I'm going to teach it through the four components of what I call the mPowered music room. And as I go through this today, I would like you to experience what I'm talking about and get an overview for it so that you can understand and see what it is and say, hey, this could be a tool that would really be helpful for me. And then if it is, you come back and we break it down into this 4 steps over the next 4 weeks, or it gives you enough of an overview and you go, yeah, maybe not. So today's purpose is to give you an overview of what I'm talking about and why it's so important. And so, because I believe it's important that we support our own or the teachers' social and emotional needs so that we can do this important work. We cannot support our students. We cannot hold these programs together that we run um, through a pandemic, after a pandemic, if we don't have some tools and strategies. And starting from scratch is really hard. So I'm going to share what I have learned and offer what I can offer. And I invite you to take what works and let go of whatever doesn't work. But let me give you a little background of my why through my personal story. First of all, music education has been a huge part of my life. It is my life's work. My mom and dad hooked up in the Husky Marching Band at the University of Washington, got married, and their honeymoon was going with the band on a Rose Bowl trip. How nerdy is that? My grandma was a high school orchestra teacher. My father's entire career was a high school band director for over 30 years. I've got over 30 years invested as a high school band director. Um, I'm married to a trumpet player, and all three of my children, who are 4 years apart, so for 12 consecutive years, my own children were part of the music program where I teach, and I live in the community where I teach and serve. And so this is really personal for me, the health of a music community, of the people involved in it, the students, because they're a big part of it. They are who we're here to serve. And if we're going to serve them well, how do we stay healthy? I want to see programs continue and grow strong. But when I, over the course of the 30 some years that I've been a teacher, I built up this great program that I was so proud of. And I built all that program, but I didn't know how to do it in a sustainable way. And 4 years ago, I almost walked away from my life's work and my passion. And I was going to retire this past June, and once all of this happened with COVID and we were sent out of our classrooms on March 13th, I just couldn't leave my kids at that point. I was like, no, not the time to go. So kept my, I've kept myself in the game. Um, before I knew all this was happening in 2020, starting in January, I started writing my book, Love the Job, Lose the Stress. I was going to leave that as my calling card, as I walked out of that job and into the world to share all the tidbits I had learned. And of course, I finished the manuscript March 3rd. 10 days later, Love the Job, Lose the Stress seemed like the universe going, oh, really, Leslie? Watch what happens when we're no longer doing in-person school. And I had 60 days to revise the book and figure out what online music education looked like. And honestly, I can say, the book comes out next month and I can say I love the job. I haven't lost the stress. That's a bunch of hoo-ha. That's kind of a dumb title. But I've learned to keep it at bay. The stress is not managing me anymore. It's not taking over. So how does that happen? Well, let me talk about that with you. I support music teachers in ways that can help them support their own needs so they can support students. And I create tools and coach them through situations. And we talk about how you can take these tools into your classroom. And I'm talking to music teachers, so let's talk about chord progressions and improvising and the blues. And how does that relate to what I'm going to talk about today with the empowered music room, right? The blues, if you will, is a form. It tells us how we're going to get from point A to point B. It's a roadmap. The template I'm going to share with you today for my empowered music room is a form. It's the way I do things. When we're talking about the blues, we have chord structures. There's a function of each chord. It's either tonic, like that home bass, or it's a subdominant leading us away, or it's dominant telling us to head back somewhere, right? There's certain purposes for each of those chords. You learn them in the 1, 4, and 5 chords, 1, 4, 5, 7 chords. Later, when you get really good at it, you might have tritone substitutions, you might have subdominants in there, but still the function's going to be the same. Once you learn a way to set your classroom up, whether it's in person, virtual, or hybrid, in a way where you've got a format that you can follow and then just work within that each day, suddenly it's like just playing the blues in a new key, or maybe with a little um, altered changes at the end, or throwing in a 4-bar tag, but you still know the form because you really understand it. And so what I did when I was editing the book in March and April of last year, and doing this online band things, I thought, oh my gosh, where have I been the most successful in the more than 30,000 classes I have taught? What did I do in the years and the times when my students were really engaged? They were making the growth markers that I had for them, and when I was at my best serving them. And I looked at that and I started distilling it down to what are the basics? What is that basic structure? What are the things that are must haves in the classroom? And what are the things we can just let go? And I narrowed that down to 4 distinct sections, if you will. And that's what I'm going to teach you about today. Uh, and it becomes the anchor for us. And because I so firmly believe in modeling what I'm doing, I'm going to actually model with you one of the I'm going to model all the steps, but I'm going to intentionally model the second step for you right now. And that is uh, the second piece of this step, and I'll tell you the first piece later. You haven't missed anything, don't worry. But the second step is focus. What do we do to help our students focus? And so rather than tell you later what I do for my students to focus, I'm going to do with you what I do with my students. And I'm going to take 4 minutes and we're going to do that focus factor together. And I want to invite you to experience what my kids do every day to help them get focused so that teaching and learning becomes easier. So you may have done this with me before. Great. We practice it every day in my classroom. Just because we've done it once doesn't mean we don't do it again. I practice it every day at home. So if you haven't done it before, just practice it with us for the first time and notice what happens here. And then I will talk about how this fits into that form. So if you are in a position right now where you are doing anything where you need to have your attention on someone else, or you're driving or something, please don't listen to the sound of my voice for the next 4 minutes, because I'm going to ask you to really relax so that we can get focused, because we all come from busy, busy places. You've all been teaching. I've been teaching. Kids have had, midwinter break, all the snow, all the things that go on. We come to our classes scatterbrained and distracted. So how do we get students focused? How do we as teachers get focused? This is step 2 of my program, or of my template for my classroom. So I want you to experience it with me now. So for the next 4 minutes, if you're in a place where you are safe to do so, I want to invite you to just kind of get the wiggles out here and settle in to a very comfortable seat, super comfy. And I want to invite you to tune out distractions that might be around you. So, easiest way for me to do that is to close my eyes. Maybe you close your eyes or soften your gaze. Nobody can see you. I can't see you right now. So, go ahead and do that. And as you close your eyes and settle into that comfortable seat, I want you to notice how you feel. Can you sense your heartbeat? That's your body's metronome. Is it fast or slow? And is your breath coming in short gasps or just smooth? Don't judge, just notice. And then we're going to notice if anything changes over the next couple of minutes. Your only job is to observe your body right now. Take a nice deep inhale, and on your next exhale, perhaps you notice what it feels like as you allow the muscles in your face and jaw and tongue to soften. And on another exhale, maybe you allow your shoulders to melt away from your ears and your arms and hands become heavy as they rest wherever they land. And on another exhale, maybe you can sense how your back and sits bones, thighs and feet anchor you into your chair. And the muscles in your body can soften towards the earth and rest for perhaps the first time all day. And just take a moment to notice how you feel. Does anything feel different than it did about a minute ago? I'm going to count from 1 to 10 and invite you to pace your breathing with my counting, nice and slow and deep. And on each exhale, can you just allow your body to relax 10 times more than it already is, just feeling heavy for just a couple of minutes? 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe you're sensing some heaviness in your body. 5, 6. If your tongue is returned to the roof of your mouth, can you allow it to just release gently? 6, 7, 8, 9. Maybe on your next exhale, you could just do an open mouth sigh and allow all the tension to just go. 10. And just notice how your body feels in this moment. And can you imagine for just a moment if you and your students practice this every day? And in a matter of 3 to 4 minutes, you could help them relax. And when they practice doing it every day, it becomes an automatic response. Just like when you teach them to respond to your hand gestures as a conductor or to what they see on pieces of paper and they turn that into fingerings on an instrument, you teach them many more complex things. What if you could teach them to relax and focus? So then, once you had their undivided attention, like right in this moment, you could let them know what the goal is for today. You could mention, today while we're practicing, I want you to really listen for intonation or for how you're blending in with the people next to you, whatever it is you want, but you have their undivided attention and you can get them really to pay attention to what you do. You've had them put aside anything that's distracting and they've gotten focused. I do this with my students every day, and like I do with them at this point, I then say, now we're going to get on with the rest of our class. So I'd like to invite you to reverse that relaxation process so you're not super tired because you won't like that. And the way to do that is to start wiggling fingers and toes, maybe roll out your wrists and ankles, get some circulation in your body. Those fluids need to move. Feels pretty good, maybe to slowly roll your neck or shoulders out. And as I count from 5 to 1, can you reverse that relaxation process? And when I say 1 in your own time, and you feel ready, and you feel focused and ready to go and begin again, just float those eyes open and we will continue. So take your whatever space you need to stretch and do whatever you need so you're ready to go. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right. So that's a part of everything I do, whether I'm coaching adult groups or teaching my students. We all come with busyness in our head, with things that distract us. I invest less than 10% of my class time on that focus factor. But because I invest that 10%, everything else I do is easier. Kids learn it better and faster. And when I go into teaching that segment of it, I'm going to give you all the goods on it. But I wanted you to experience that because now, no matter what you came to this session with, now you've had an opportunity to remember why we're here. We are here to talk about you and some takeaways that you can have for for your own classroom. Want to share with you what are the components of the empowered music room. What does that even mean? Um, it's a room. And I came to this conclusion because I found that after decades of my own emotional and mental exhaustion and my own physical health challenges that are, I have a whole book about them. So just trust me, they were there. I couldn't serve my students when I was sick, when I was missing school, or when I was so distracted by the pain and the other stuff. It was hard to be the teacher and mom and partner that I should have been. So my definition of an empowered music classroom is where the teachers and students' social and emotional needs are optimized for or supported for optimal student learning. What does that mean? There are 4 pieces. So here's the chord progression, if you will. Here's the template. Learn the template, understand how maybe you already do a bunch of the stuff in the template, so just figure out how what you're doing fits in this language, and then are you missing something in here? And if so, what is it and how could it maybe help you? What is that first component? Social. 10% of my time in my classroom, whether it's in person or uh, online or wherever we are, 10% of that class time is devoted to the social piece. Now, it is so intuitive and easy and inherent in an ensemble class. The kids get the social stuff. They come into the band choir orchestra room knowing what they're coming in for. They're excited about it. Their friends are there. They love what they're doing with you. They're making great music. The social needs are met. We really don't hardly have to think about them because in an ensemble setting, that's so easy. It's a magnet that draws them in, the friends and the thing you're doing. I'm 100% virtual, so I'm going to give you a little snapshot on each of these on how I'm doing this in the virtual world because I know a lot of you are in that space too. So, how do I do that in uh, in a virtual world? It's through a thing called You, Me, and a Cup of Tea. And why did I understand this was important? It's because I surveyed my students last spring. I'm like, what do we need to do in school? And they said, we really miss our friends. We miss the social piece. So we came to this conclusion of we could have a social piece. You can't socialize the same online as you can in the band room. It's just not the same. It's hard for a lot of people who are comfortable in small groups or in the band room or using their instruments to suddenly be talking to people. And everybody looks at you when you talk online, so it's harder. So I intentionally created something called You, Me, and a Cup of Tea. It's our social activity. And instead of saying to the kids, you have to be in class on time or it'll be marked tardy and blah, 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 I start with the social activity that they help design, that they're a part of, so that that's the draw. Because that is a huge need for humans in general, but especially teenagers. So give them that social piece. What is You, Me, and a Cup of Tea? Um, the first assignment when I had to teach the kids the beginning of the year how to get through Canvas, and frankly, I had to learn how to use Canvas. I needed to know could they find Canvas? Could they open an assignment? Could they download or go to a Google document, get a template? Could they modify it? And then could they upload it? I had a ton of stuff I wanted to teach them. And so I thought, well, I want them all to have something that looks familiar. So anyway, to meet their social needs, we created the template so that every day each student comes into the classroom and they see this common template with my picture and some of these words, and then whoever the guest co-host student is their picture is on there. And for the first 10 minutes of the day, that student and I do a little interview talking, and then that student shares their anthem, the one song that no matter how bad things are going, that can always lift them up. And so that's how we start our classes. We meet their social needs. Now I'm doing a timeout here. Um, this is my personal vision board for the year. That's a whole nother thing I'll talk about later. But my vision is to have Lin-Manuel Miranda come in and be my guest for You, Me, and a Cup of Tea. So if any of you music teachers out there can hook me up, let me know, please. I'd love to show my kids the power of vision boards. They've seen this vision board. They would love to see it too. And I think it shows the power of what we can do when we all put our minds towards a project together. But anyway, we have to meet our own social needs and their social needs. So that's got to be 10% of your conscious efforts. Focus. Intentionally teaching our students how to build this skill. In your classroom, you probably have a routine that you had done up until March, at least, where the kids would come in and you would have them go through some warm-ups together and then tuning and those things. We got the instruments in tune and it kind of helps them focus. I go a step further. I believe in, we don't just tell the kids to focus or take them through an activity, but we talk to them about how we're building a skill, that we're going to intentionally practice it every day and tune our brains and our bodies to get ready for band through a process I call the first 4 minutes. So when we talk about that in one of the next 4 weeks, I will break that down for you. I'll give you a template you can take and use for the first 4 minutes and then make it work in your room. Then we've got the content, and that's your lesson for the day. That's what most people think teaching is. They think it's 100% content, teach bell to bell. Have you heard that before? Have those learning targets on the board, have the kids come in, teach bell to bell, blah, blah, blah. Whoa, whoa, whoa. What if you walked in and you didn't tune the instruments or warm them up and tune them? Ugh, that sounds terrible, right? How walking into a kids and having the kids come in and just diving into content without them having a chance to recalibrate for them what needs to be done in the moment. That's crazy. Can you afford to give up 25% of your time to all this other foo-foo stuff? Yes. And if you don't, content is harder to teach because you still got to get them to focus, but then you're like reminding them, it's like whack-a-mole. Hey, so-and-so, are you there? Blah, blah, blah. So if you brought them in, then teaching the content is so much easier. And I'm going to share some content in the week that I teach this piece to you because as a ensemble teacher exclusively for 32 years and now being fully online, I've had to totally reconstruct everything, and kids learn differently online. So it has fascinated me how to reconstruct things, how I think my kids are becoming better musicians than they were in the classroom as second clarinet players. They're becoming more well-rounded, more creative. They're doing more. And when we go back to our in-person finally, when all this is over, we can take the best of what we've learned here and the best of what we had in our ensemble settings. I think Music Ed 2.0 is going to be amazing. But again, the content is important, but so are these other pieces. And if you have all the other pieces and crappy content, that's not good either. So all of this matters. Did you notice I only came up with 95%? Well, what else could be so important that it's only worth 5%? Probably the most important thing. I would say that the coda, as I define it here, which is feedback that informs future lessons, I would say that's 90% of what you do in the real classroom. It's feedback through your ears, right? You're hearing stuff and you're giving immediate feedback. For music teachers, we don't have to, do little quizzes all the time and do those things because we are in real time uh, assessing, identifying problem areas, and coaching kids through them in real time. When I'm doing online band with 60 some kids on a screen that I can't even see all of them because they overflow, um, I can't hear their voices every day. That was crushing to me, absolutely crushing to me to um, to not be able to see them and hear them every day. And so I created something I call the Moffat-gram. And I'm going to actually model that for you here. I will close this out with a Moffat-gram to show you how that works. Um, but my Moffat-grams, I said to the students, I miss standing at the door every day with my cup of tea as you come in the band room, and I could ask you about the soccer game or how your little sister's doing, or if we, just those little conversations that come up when you see the kids every day, when they walk past you, or you see them in the room, or you interact with them. You can hear their voices, you can see their body language, you know what they need based on what they're producing and the like. And in an online situation, wow, my senses, it's like being deprived of my hearing, which is how I normally got my data, to suddenly like, how am I going to hear all of their voices every day? And so I said to them, y'all have the Instagrams and the Facebooks and the Snapchats. I'm going to make the Moffat-gram, my way of hearing your voice every day, my way of asking you an important question that you can tell me so that when I get ready to create the next lesson or see if I've got things in, am I giving you too much work or is it imbalance? I can check in with you. I can hear your voice and then I can take what you say and still impact what happens in our class. I get 95.5% turn in on those every day, every class period, because it's hearing the kids' voice and the way it was implemented. Those are without that feedback, I don't know if kids are understanding what I'm teaching. I don't know um, what's going on up in their heads. And so that piece now, my Moffat-gram, it's the last thing I give them at the end of every lesson. So they have, hang on, kids, because you don't get your Moffat-gram till the end. But then it's a chance for them to reflect on whatever it is I'm asking them, but I know what that question is going to be, so I've set them up to answer it. They answer it, and I get immediate feedback that then serves as a quick way. I do it through Google Forms, so I can quickly collect the information, sort it by class, alphabetize it. I can quickly find, in Google Forms, it does great graphs, so if I can immediately identify if a student says, I need help from Mrs. Moffat, if that's an option on a given day, I can immediately click that button and it tells me who needs what, and I identify it and I put that in my notes for the next class. And it's super easy. But if I didn't do that, I wouldn't know what my kids need. So might be teaching great lessons, but I wouldn't know if it's what my students needed or if they were understanding it. But that daily feedback that we always got through our ears in the in-person stuff or in-person ensembles, much more intentional in this way. I want to talk about how did I do those 4 steps here um, in this. And my goal is to keep these chats to 30 minutes if I can. Your time is very, very valuable. So I'll try to wrap this up as quickly as I can for you. But I want you to see that I just modeled for you the empowered music room. What does that mean? That means that I've taken you through the steps that I'm teaching you to use. The social piece at the beginning. I was hoping lots more people would be live. I have 60 some people who I have signed up for this. I'm doing it during the middle of the workday, so I need to rethink that for next time. But I was going to use the chat box to socially interact with folks at the beginning, and I had an opening slide, but I didn't get much interaction in that point. But I was attempting to do the chat box, and I should have pardon me, initiated some more of that so that we could get to know who was online live and then allow that social bit so that I could recognize who are the people I'm talking to today. If I'm talking to all band directors, I use the word band in everything. If I'm talking to band, orchestra, choir teachers, I just substitute the word music so that it's still personal to you. So it helps me know the people I'm working with. That's a social thing for me. And it also gives you an opportunity to speak out and share who you are. So I tried to incorporate that at the beginning of class. That's the first piece, social with your students. When I'm teaching any class, I still do that piece. The second piece, the focus factor. I took you through the same 4-minute routine I do with my students every day. We practice focusing. We practice getting rid of all the other things so we can focus on the content. The third piece is the content, where you spend about 75% of your time. Your content today was I was taking you through the steps. So this lesson was kind of weird because the content is actually the lesson kind of thing, but you're getting the lesson within the lesson, if you will. And then the coda. The coda is the Moffat-gram, and I have to find my link, pardon me, and I do this with my students every day. At the end of our class, I tell them I'm putting the link to the Moffat-gram in the chat. Let me copy it for you. And in just, oh, I forgot I wanted to mention one other thing. I want you to take just a second and think about social, focus, the content you're teaching, or the identification of what students have learned and what you need to do next time, the coda. Um, which which one of those is the area in which you feel most comfortable already in whatever setting you're in? Just think about, if we had lots of people active, I would have done this in the chat. Um, if you're comfortable putting it in the chat, great. If you feel like I've already got the social piece down, or I really do have a way for my kids to focus already, or I'm great at content delivery, maybe there's one of those that you're really good at there. And then thinking about which area of those are you the least comfortable in? Because what I'm going to ask you is to give me feedback in this very short Moffat-gram, and I'm also modeling for you what a Moffat-gram is. This is my coda at the end of every class. I ask my students to fill out a form that is very much like this, and if you click on that link, pardon me, if if you click on that link and answer the few questions that ask you which of the 4 components you feel the most comfortable in and which you'd like to learn most about, then that will inform what I would teach next time so that I start with the content that's most relevant to what you need. I could teach it in order, but if lots of people come into this really want to are struggling in one other area, let's talk about that first. That's how you differentiate. That's how you meet your students' needs, right? You ask what they need and then you revolve your instruction in the most effective way possible. So I want to share that tool with you right now through my Moffat-gram and invite you to send that back to me so that if you show up next time, you've had influence on what I'm going to teach in the next order. Um, so I'll be doing these every Friday, and I'd love to invite you to come back each week. Find out or watch the replays. And in about 30 minutes, I'd like to introduce each of those sections in depth so that you can walk out of each section with, here's a tool. If I'm teaching the one about focus factor, I will share with you the template I've already created. I've got videos that link to it so you can practice with. I've got all kinds of things that I will share with you. So I want to invite you back for this free four more weeks of this on Friday afternoons. I'll always send out the replays if you miss this. If you really love this idea and you're thinking, it all seems good, but I'd love to know more and find out what I could do, to get more support in that area, I would love to share with you that I do offer that as well. I offer opportunities for coaching and I work with folks. Can't share my screen right now. There we go. Um, in a way that I worked with my coach for 2 years ago, I decided I wanted to write a book. Well, I thought about it for years. I just didn't know how to do it. Where do I start? How do I figure out what the first step is? So I hired a coach and I worked with her on Zoom once a week with 28 other authors from around the world doing different book topics, but we were all learning how to write books. We were learning a template of how do you write a book? How do you approach the book writing process? She taught the process so well, and I had that coaching that I went from idea to done in 90 days, and then I had the concept down so well, I wrote a second book during a pandemic. She taught me a process. That's what I teach. I teach the process of setting up your lessons in ways that you have a format, a form, a blues progression, if you will. You have a template that each day you say, how will I meet my kids' social needs? What will I do to help them focus? And when you have pieces in place that you don't have to reteach every day, but you practice that each day, it is so much fun and so much easier to teach. And kids are happier too. So if that seems like something that would be appealing to you, I would love to invite you to see if we'd be a good fit to work together. You could head to the Music Ed Masterclass application at mpowerededucator.com/apply. You fill that out, and if it looks like we'd be a good fit to work together, I will personally reach out to you, set up a one-on-one call. We'll talk about what your goals are, and if we both say, yes, this looks like a terrific opportunity for both of us, um, I would I'll extend an offer. But this is very much like putting together a chamber ensemble. I've got a group of people I'm working with, and so I wouldn't want to bring. If I was putting together a brass quintet and you were the world's greatest trumpet player, or sorry, you'd fit in then, but you played banjo. As great a banjo player as you are, if your goals would be different probably than that of the brass quintet. So that's why I don't just say, hey, everybody come join this. I say, let's see if we'd be a good fit, because then I can be more effective for you. So thanks for showing up. I hope you'll join me on our at the mPowered Music Room on Fridays. If you found this helpful and want more information, feel free to reach out to me. Invite your music teacher friends, and thank you for the hard work you are doing to make sure that music education can continue for people, because this is absolutely critical in the healing of our kids and ways for them to cope with what's going on. You are doing very important work, and I want to be here to provide the tools that makes it easier so you can do it without burning out. I'm with you on this journey. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.